Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel. APWSPORTS signing in, and it is almost close to training camp. We're about a little over a month and a half away, and it is time to rank the head coaches heading into this 2022 NFL season. Now, how I'm going to get these rankings is not going to really include the past. I'm not going to really include the past. We're going to talk about things going into this season, how I think these coaches will do their job this season along, and outlook of things going into this season. So I'm not really going to include the past too much, even though it's going to be a little bit of a factor, but I'm not going to include it too much into the rankings of this coming season. But before I get into that, as always, leave this video a like, as this helps the channel to grow, and click the subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss any of the football content that I post on this channel. So without further ado, let's dive into it.
I'm striving to get rich. That's why I almost went 2 years without buying shoes and fits. Things change now. My mom hearing me with my music and she look a little prouder.
Okay, so we have the categories of elite, great, good, decent, trash, don't know, too early to tell, and on the hot seat. The first coach we're going to get is Nathaniel Hackett. He's now the head coach of the Denver Broncos. And to be honest, he's a first-year head coach, period. First head coaching job. It's a little bit too early to tell on him. They even got Russell Wilson. They got a lot of offensive pieces with Patrick Sutton and guys like Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams in the backfield with a much improved defense, with Darby, with guys like Bradley Chubb. But it's still a little bit too early to tell of how he's going to do as the head coach of that team. They have a good roster, but it's still a little too early to tell. Next, we're going to have Pete Carroll going into this season. And, of course, he's one of the better head coaches in the league. I'm going to give him decent. I don't see this Seattle Seahawks team really being too great, especially with Drew Lock at the quarterback. He can get himself to good later on in the year if he does a good job with Drew Lock and getting something out of him. But for now, I'm going to get decent for Pete Carroll. Matt Rule, I believe, is on a hot seat. I believe Matt Rule is on a hot seat. He's into year 3. They have a lot of changes within this roster. They ended up getting a guy like Matt Carroll in the draft. They still don't know what they're going to do with Sam Darnold. They still have offensive weapons like Robbie Anderson. You still have DJ Moore. You still have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. You have a defense that is I believe, one of the better defenses in the league. And it's time for him to start winning some football games now. So I think Matt Rule is on the hot seat. Next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, Zach Taylor. I think he's going to do a great job with that Cincinnati Bengals team. And that Bengals team was not supposed to be that good last year. It's not supposed to be that good last year, and a lot of that was a credit to Zach Taylor and the way he was able to draw up offense for guys like Burrow, for Mixon, for Higgins, for Jamar Chase. So I'm going to give Zach Taylor a great job going into this year. Next is John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to put him in good. He's still a really good head coach. This Ravens team, I think, is still devoid of a true number 1 wide receiver, especially with the trade of a guy like Hollywood Brown. I still think they need help at that receiving position. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to put him at good. Next is my team's head coach, Matt Eberflus. I like a lot of the things he said in the press conferences. I like how he's going to go, but at this point, still too early to tell. Especially when you're transitioning from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense. They lost Khalil Mack in a trade. Akeem Hicks is no longer here. They did add pieces in the draft. But this season for Matt Eberflus, I think it's going to be a lot about how Justin Fields develops. So even though he's a defensive head coach, I still believe a lot of this season is for the Bears is how Justin Fields develops. It's too early to tell. It's too early to tell, but I like some of the things that Matt Eberflus says and he's doing with this Bears roster and this Bears team. Next, we're going to have Mike Tomlin. Elite. I think he's going to do a very good job with this Pittsburgh Steelers team. One of the more elite coaches in this league. Personally, he's my favorite head coach. Personally, I will just say this now. He's my favorite head coach in the NFL. He is one of the more elite coaches that we have in this league, and I still think he's going to do an elite job with this Pittsburgh Steelers team going into 2022. Next is Robert Saleh. And I put him with the same category as Pete Carroll. I think he's going to do a decent job with this Jets team. They have a lot of developing to do. You have Garrett Wilson, you have Sauce Gardner, you have Zach Wilson heading into year 2. And I still believe he can call a very good defense. This team, in this point, in my opinion, is still a developing team. But I think Robert Saleh is going to do a very decent job with this New York Jets team heading into 2022. Next, we have Todd Bowles. Now, Todd Bowles has been a head coach before. I think he should have had another chance with the way that things went with the Jets and how that whole situation went. And this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team returns a lot of their guys, and he's been calling them one of the better defensive schemes that we've seen over the last couple of seasons. So I think he's still going to do a good job with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. It's his first year there, but he's been a head coach before. So I still think he's going to do a very good job in Tampa Bay. Next, we're going to have Josh McDaniels as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's been a head coach before, and that's flopped. He turned on the coach job. But with the addition of Devontae Adams to add to Derek Carr, to add to Josh Jacobs, I still think this team has a little bit more room to grow. They did just come off a playoff appearance last season. I think he's going to do a decent job. Decent to good. It's struggle between the two for me. But I still think he's going to be a decent head coach going into 2022. And the Raiders, let's just say they are in, I believe, the most competitive division going into this year in the AFC West with all the moves that each of those teams made. So I think he's going to do a very decent job with the Raiders. Next, we're going to have Cliff Kingsbury. Now, they started off hot last season, and they struggled down the stretch. A lot of that was injuries, but I think a lot of that was, I think they didn't do a very good job of making sure they came out to play every week later on down the stretch of the year. And I'm not going to put him in trash because I don't think he's trash. It's interesting to see what Kyler Murray's going to do, but I got to put him in decent as well. I still think he's a very good coach. He got a lot out of Kyler Murray. He's gotten a lot out of Kyler Murray, and the offense fits Kyler Murray. They still have a lot of good pieces, even though you got DeAndre Hopkins missing the first 6 weeks of the year. I think he does a good job of scheming up offense and creating ways for the Cardinals to move the football. It's just the thing with the Cardinals, they have to continue that through all 16 weeks because last year they struggled down the stretch. So I'm going to put him at decent. Next, we're going to have Ron Rivera. Now, they dealt with some injuries last year. Quarterback position wasn't so great, even though I personally think Taylor Heineke was solid. They add Carson Wentz. So I'm going to put Ron Rivera in decent. I'm going to put Ron Rivera at a decent spot in this scenario. Next, we're going to have head coach Mike Frabo from the Tennessee Titans. I think he's going to do a great job with this team. He did great last year. He had them at the number 1 seed, which is a very big surprise. They had the Titans 12-5. They do lose A.J. Brown, which I think is going to hurt. They still have Derrick Henry. They still have a defense with Larry Landry that has been very improving over the last couple of years. They struggled in 2020. 2021, Vrabel picked things up. He happened to have this defense right back to solid. Tannehill still a question, so I'm going to put him at great. I still think he's a very, very good coach. Very good coach. One coach of the year last year, so I'm going to put him at great. Next is Arthur Smith. He might be the first I put at trash, and I don't think it's trash because it's just that roster doesn't have much, and I don't know if he's the guy that's going to get so much out of his roster, even though drafting Drake London was, I think, a very, very good pick for them. You have Marcus Mariota, you draft Desmond Ritter, you have a defense that's led by Deion Jones and A.J. Terrell, but I just don't think this Falcons team is going to do so well, and it's going to make him look bad, so I'm going to put him at trash for this scenario. Next, my boy, I love you, Lovie Smith. He was the defensive coordinator for the Texans last year. I can't put him at trash. It's too early to tell with this Texans team because they don't have a lot. These Texans teams really doesn't have a lot. Even though I'm a personal believer in Lovie Smith, I believe he can get the job done. But it's just a little bit too early to tell in my opinion. Next, we have Frank Wright. Now, this might be a little bit of a, I want to say controversial stance on this, but I'm going to put him at elite. I think he's been through so many quarterbacks he's been through Andrew Luck. He's been through Jacoby Brissett. He's been through Phillip Rivers. Last year, Carson Wentz. And whatever quarterback he has, he still has this team very competitive. He still has this team in playoff contention every single season. He still has this team on the up and up. No matter who the quarterback is, they've gotten a lot out of him. So I think he's one of the more elite offensive minds that we have in this league. Now he has Matt Ryan. Mick Foles is back up with Jonathan Taylor in your running game. So I'm going to put him, I think he's a very elite coach, and I think he's going to do an elite job with the Colts in 2022. Next, you're going to have Nick Sirianni from the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he's going to do a good job. The Eagles have done a lot to get A.J. Brown. I think he's going to get more out of Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders, I think that was a struggle with them last season. They didn't incorporate the running game into their offense last year. They started getting late, and they got him on a roll to get him to the playoffs. He's going to do a very good job with this Eagles team. They add Hassan Reddick in free agency. They still have Fletcher Cox. They still have Brandon Graham. You still have Darius Slay on your defense. I think he's going to do a very good job with this Philadelphia Eagles team. Next, we're going to have Mike Mcdonald. Now, I could easily put him on a don't know too early to tell. But with this offense and the things that he did with San Francisco, even though Mike Shanahan did a lot of it as well, I think he's going to do a very decent job with this Miami Dolphins team. I think he's going to get a lot out of Tua that the old regime with Brian Flores didn't. I think he's going to get more production out of him. You have weapons like Tyreek, you have Jalen Wilder, you add Matt Breida, you have guys on your defense like Xavier and Howard, and you have Christian Wilkins in the middle. I think this Miami Dolphins team is going to do well. I think Mike Mcdonald is a sleeper, could be a sleeper for Coach of the Year if he gets this Dolphins team to that, I think that playoff division contending level, which I think this Dolphins team has the potential to be, and I think Mike Mcdonald can be a guy that can get them there. Next, we're going to have Mike McCarthy. His decision-making down the stretch clock management has been very questionable, to say the least. And I'm going to put him on the hot seat. I think Mike McCarthy is on a hot seat. If the Dallas Cowboys don't have success this year, I think he's out. There's already pressure for him to be out after the way things happened last year. It was even pressure for him to be out after 2020, but they had a lot of injuries. So I think he's on a hot seat. I think Mike McCarthy is on a hot seat. And I don't believe this Cowboys team is going to be bad, but if they are below playoff level, if they don't beat NFC East contenders or win the division, I think Mike McCarthy is going to be out the door. Next is Sean McDermott from the Buffalo Bills. I put him as an elite coach. Even though they really fumbled the bag against the Chiefs in the divisional round. So I'm going to have him at elite. I think he's one of the more elite coaches. We've seen even though that was Brian Daboll's handling as well, this team is just been getting better every single season. Even with Josh Allen, even with the defense. You have Von Miller, you have Tre'Davious White, you have Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, who I think is an MVP candidate. I still think he's one of the more elite coaches because I just really see this Bills team getting better and better every single season. So I'm going to put him at elite. Next is Matt LaFleur from the Green Bay Packers, my hated team. I think he's going to do a great job. It's still interesting to see how this offense is going to look without Devontae Adams. He's done a great job with them with Devontae Adams there, finding ways to get him open. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is definitely elite. He's gotten this team to 13 wins every single season. So I'm going to put him at great. I'm only not going to put him at elite. I just want to see what he's going to do with this offense minus Devontae Adams. Next, we're going to have Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, I think, is going to do a very decent job with this Detroit Lions team. They are very much improved, to be honest. They are very much improved. Now, I still don't believe in Jared Goff to be the guy at the quarterback position. But you have DeAndre Swift, in the backfield. You add a guy like Jamison Williams, who I think is going to come back healthy. Aiden Hutchinson in the draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a sensational rookie season last year. And this Lions team just absolutely plays hard. They weren't very good last year as far as the record. But when you watch this Detroit Lions team, they played hard. And I believe that is a what's the word I'm looking for? That is a reflection of Dan Campbell. So I believe he's going to do a very decent job, and I think Detroit can be one of the more improved teams in the NFL with Dan Campbell heading into year 2 as the Lions head coach. Next, we're going to have Brian Daboll. Now, I'm not going to put him in too early to tell because Daniel Jones, you have a big situation in your hands with Daniel Jones. What are you going to get out of this Giants offense? You have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, if he can come back healthy. You have Sterling Shepard, if he can come back healthy. Kenny Golladay didn't do much of last year. You add Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas to your offensive line. That defense got improved by driving Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. They lost James Bradbury, which I think he was one of the good corners in this league. But it's a little bit too early to tell. The job is mainly what can he get out of Daniel Jones. So it's too early to tell what coaching job he's going to do. It all depends on what he's going to get out of Daniel Jones. Next, Sean McVay. I put him in elite, Super Bowl champion. You can say it was a lot of star power, but it takes a coach to get a lot out of that star power. You prove that Jared Goff wasn't the guy when you get Matthew Stafford last year and you take him and you get him a Super Bowl championship. That proves that he was right about Jared Goff the entire time. Jared Goff was not the guy. And he got Jared Goff to the Super Bowl, even though we can question that NFC Championship game pass interference call. But you got a lot out of Jared Goff. You still was able to get to a Super Bowl with him. And then you get Matthew Stafford and you win a Super Bowl. So I'm going to put him at elite. Dennis Allen, even though he's a defensive coordinator for the Saints for the last couple of years, still a little bit too early to tell. This team, Jameis Winston, I believe in Jameis Winston. He's a defensive mind, so we got Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. You have those guys on your defense, DeMario Davis. So I still think it's a little bit too early to tell what he's going to do with this Saints team, even though I can believe could put him at a decent level, but it's a little bit still too early to tell. Next, we have Kevin O'Connell. He is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. It's still too early to tell with him as well. Still a little bit too early to tell. It's a little bit too early to tell, even though the Vikings have a lot of pieces on offense with Kirk Cousins, who hit or miss, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. Your defense, Patrick Peterson, a little bit older than the tooth. You have guys like Anthony Barr. You have guys like Eric Kendrick, who I think is one of the better middle linebackers in this league. Everson Griffin. You have guys like Danielle Hunter. Still a little bit too early to tell with this Minnesota Vikings team and where he can take them. Next is Brandon Staley from the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to do good with him. He has the potential to be great, but they add a lot of pieces. You add Khalil Mack, Derwin James come back fully healthy, Joey Bosa. You have Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, who I believe is one of the top quarterbacks in this league, and he got a lot out of him last year. And they were a couple of mishaps away from being a playoff team last season. So I could easily put him at good or great. I just want to see, can he get over that hump and make the playoffs? I think he can. He can get over the hump and make the playoffs for this Los Angeles Chargers team. Next, we're going to have Kyle Shanahan from the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to put him at elite. To get a lot out of Jimmy G, to get this team to another NFC Championship game, and they blew another 10-point lead. But you got that team that struggled in 2020 with injuries. 2019, you got a Super Bowl. Now you were a couple of mishaps and plays away from going to another Super Bowl. And it has a lot to do with Kyle Shanahan and the way he does with this roster. So I ain't going to put Kyle Shanahan at elite. I think he can do an elite job still with San Francisco, no matter if it's Trey Lance or Jimmy G who ends up starting the season. I still think he's one of the more elite coaches. I think he's going to do a very good elite job with the San Francisco 49ers team. Next, we're going to have Doug Peterson. He's been a head coach before. A lot of what he got fired for in Philly had to do a lot with the Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts situation. You have Trevor Lawrence in year 2, new system. He's proven to win a Super Bowl. I'm going to say he's going to do a decent job. The Jacksonville Jaguars laid out on moves this offseason. Whether it's getting a guy like Brandon Sheriff for your offensive line, Christian Kirk, they spent a ton of money this offseason. I think Doug Peterson is going to do a decent job with this Jacksonville Jaguars team. I think they're going to be better competitive. I don't still think they're going to make the playoffs or anything, but I think you're going to get more growth out of Trevor Lawrence under Doug Peterson in year 2. So I'm going to put him at decent. Next is Andy Reid. He's absolutely elite. Now, they did lose Tyreek Hill. He's still going to do a elite job with Patrick Mahomes. He's still going to do an elite job with his offense, Travis Kelce. The defense is a little bit of my question with this Kansas City Chiefs team, but I still think Andy Reid is one of the best offensive minds that you have in football. And I think even with the loss of Tyreek Hill, he's still going to do an elite job of getting the most out of this Kansas City Chiefs offense. Next, Bill Belichick, still elite. Still do a very excellent job with this New England Patriots team, even though they lost J.C. Jackson. They got smoked in the playoffs by the Buffalo Bills last year. I still believe he's going to do a very elite job with this New England Patriots team with Mac Jones heading into year 2. So, elite for Bill Belichick. And the last coach on this list is Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns. Now, he could be on the hot seat. You know what? He's a sneaky hot seat candidate, and here's why. I don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson coming into this year. They add a guy like Amari Cooper. They just gave Denzel Ward a ton of money. You still have one of the better offensive lines of football. You have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at your running back positions. And I think if you don't get a lot out of this Cleveland Browns team, even with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah on your defense, I don't know if I'm saying that right, I still think it's a lot of pressure on Kevin Stefanski with this Browns roster as it's made up now to win. They did struggle a bit in 2021. And I think if those struggles continue with the roster makeup as it is now, I can see a scenario where he gets canned. I could just see it. I don't want that to happen because the Browns are one of the better teams to watch if they're clicking on all cylinders. But he's a sneaky candidate for the hot seat. Even though I could easily put him in good to decent, I just believe he's a sneaky hot seat candidate. But those are my coaching rankings heading into this year. Those are what I think every coaches and every team is going to do. I will leave a link to this in the comments in the description below. I want to see what you guys do. Send the screenshots to me on Twitter or leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to see what you guys think about my rankings, and I want to see your rankings as well. But that is going to do it. I am APW Sports signing out. Make sure you leave this video a like as always, comment, and subscribe to the channel. But I am signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great and excellent day. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.